Testing, testing.
Recording in progress.
You should have a mic up there right next to you.
Let's see if it just picks us up. All right. So what we want to start talking about is structure of our government, what that's going to look like for us. I was able to meet with the elders committee on Wednesday, and that was so much feedback, ton of participation. There were 15 elders there, plus myself and Johnny and Austin, and it was great. Everybody was excited, and we got a lot of feedback about what's wrong with governance. However, everybody was steadfast and that they don't want to detract any authority away from the business committee or to be over the business committee in any way. So it's really in line with what we were talking about, and that they could serve as an optional sounding board, but that they would be uh, an official council in an official capacity with some authority. A lot of what they shared was spoken specifically to culture, right? Uh, and there was some about how we operate. Why at general council do we have all the business committee sitting up on podium, right? They don't take any action at an Indian council at all, right? So if there's any votes that are made, the votes are not by the council. And so that was something that was pointed out, and I think, oh, I've thought about that before. And in that stead, we could have elders sitting up there, right? Or the elders committee up there giving feedback and providing input on what we're about over the past year. Mhm. Other feedback was that this business committee, is doing a fine job. There was a couple that had spoken to how good of a job that they're doing right now. Uh, yeah, but got it.
Yeah, I thought the meeting was it went great as well. Like Roman said, I think that every person in there, all the others there, steadfast that this committee is a job. They don't want to take any authority away from this committee. Uh, I think there was a misunderstanding. Maybe we'll get to the meeting on that, but they body that helps to push or to protect the culture that we have, and to help maybe steer people that are interested in it, that we can steer those individuals to that body and say, hey, this is the body you go to if you need to know burial, any type of traditional. They label specific things.
Some of it was, powwow. There was a good chunk of it that was powwow, but there was more also that outside of that. But yeah, powwow had quite a few comments on it.
One thing that stuck out to me was the belief, and we've kind of all talked about this, gone back and forth. Should there be any type of requirements? A couple individuals that actually brought up that they didn't mention specific, like specifics, but that there should be some knowledge of culture, that should be knowledge of our history, and I thought that was very. That's all.
Other folks spoke at length about our language, how why we're not doing anything about it right now. A lot of it, to circle back around to, unfortunately, but also authority, right? Like, so there's no real authority. We don't have a department to do anything. I also met with Dr. Couple hours, but and talking about just like the complexity around language itself, right? And one of the examples that he read a story, and the way that everything came together, all the words came together. He's describing what I understood as a buffalo digging his horns into the ground, backing up, digging his horns into the ground. And he said, one thing to point out, he's like, see, somebody else, whenever they hear this in our language, they're going to hear a similar thing and get a different picture in their head. But that's what our language is doing, is it's giving us that picture of what's happening and how we understand it. And whenever we try to put that into the English language, that's where we get all fucked up, right? And he didn't say that, I said that. But yeah, and he started breaking down, some of the dynamics of like why it's so difficult for us. But he also pointed out that there are other tribes eager to help. We just gotta ask them, right? We gotta finance the help, and this is something that we mentioned that the Elders Council, could be in charge of, right? Yeah, there was some concern about, one of the terms used was plastic powwow, right? Like that it's turned into glamour rather than a celebration and a tradition. Folks want to see our old dances, turkey dances. Yeah, they want to get rid of contests, want to get rid of, or not necessarily get rid of, but they don't belong in the arena for like giveaways, right? They do those back at their camps. That's like we should start back at the camp. So there was that feedback. But all of it, all of it tied to, a cultural aspect and the want to preserve our culture and our tradition. So thinking about that as we're going forward, there's a lot that the business committee currently makes decisions on, and some of these can be moved to the Elders Council, right? And the business committee starting to look like this. If we did a separation, an executive branch could start to look more like, dignitaries, people of the people, right? And business committee is still, legislating, still creating, still having that business savviness around our enterprises and whatnot. So I left there very hopeful. I asked for another meeting in a couple of months. Our Quapaw suggested, like a 60-day cycle. And I was like, hey, that'd be great. Because they were engaged. Like if we could have that same meeting at the same time we're doing this, let them, talk more to us. I mean, that's more participation. That's more participation we've had.
Well, and they brought that up too, that that was unusual to have that.
Mm-hmm.
That so, yeah, if we could turn that into, hey, let's have the meeting, with the rules at the same time. Have that on record.
Just the attendance, just the attendance speaks to the level of concern and interest in our future, right? So it felt good walking in that room. It felt really like I walked out, I was taken by surprise. I was expecting maybe 3 people.
They did
Right.
talk about using the
Yeah.
get away from the I think that's a great idea. We talked about it. About we'd like to do more elder spotlights. Like, how you do certain things. They were more like you show somebody step by step how to do. I think that's a great idea.
There were comments about getting stuff recorded. I mean, I've heard that thrown around a lot from a lot of different venues, whether it's media or communications, business committee, language, whoever it is. I've heard it thrown around a lot, but I've never, other than what you guys do with the elder spotlight, it hasn't been much of a gumption behind getting it going, right?
Well,
like that it's like, okay, we're gonna,
recorded some stuff. There's stuff that's recorded that has to be out.
but why have we stopped?
But, well, there's reasons that because
That's right. So I mean, like that's why we're doing it important is to get that. Although we do want to hear the others, but that's what we still want to keep going, right?
yeah, and we were talking about that in that meeting. How like you said, your father, your mother, like they taught you to, like you didn't have an option, really. They told you. Come
Well,
out,
I did
this
point
is what
out
you're doing.
they told me, "Get out here, boy. You're gonna learn how to put up a teepee. You're gonna learn how to build a fire. You're gonna learn this. You're gonna learn that."
And from that, your desire grew.
Mm-hmm.
But in the other sense, there's individuals that I mean, I still remember stuff that my grandpa said, but I was really young. The other, but I had to push myself to ingrain myself in culture, right? You had an advantage because you kind of knew those things walking in, and I'm a little bit different, but I know there's people that haven't been around. They carry that kind of shame, like they don't want you to know that they don't know how to do those things, and that's kind of hindered any, I guess, keeping of that knowledge, right? Because very few, like the individuals that do know how to do those things, they want you to want, but they want you to show up without them having to say, "Hey, show up, come on here." They don't want to do that. They also don't want to hand it to you. That's not our culture either. They don't want to just speak you something, teach you how to do something. Those of us within, that if I were to ask you for something, how to do something, the tradition is that I should give you something, whether it's you know, a meal or tobacco or something. You know what I mean? But not everybody knows that. And that's kind of that whole like, oh, we want to record things. We want to put stuff out on mass, but it's like a touchy space that we're breaking through bit by bit, but we're not quite there to where all right, we're gonna share it.
I mean, something like that deserves to be asked. I'm sorry.
So what my still formulating big picture, but what are my thoughts on that? The reason that doesn't want to be shared is historical. That, for instance, we had to go underground, so it's a response to that. So that became a tradition to stay alive, to keep that information alive. But now we need to get to the point where it's we're not just having that information, having that information, but we're operating from that information. So that's part you're talking about. How do we get back to operationalizing, practicing these things? So I keep coming back to it's not just it's thought, it's how we interact, people. Yeah.
Or how do we recognize how do we recognize the norms that aren't necessarily needed, right? So kind of tying back to
Well,
what
this
we were
isn't
saying here.
just a native idea. It's keep it in, right? I mean, think of like Bruce Lee, Enter the Dragon, right? The reason that he was on the outs with a lot of that culture is because they didn't want to share it. They didn't want to share, and that's kind of sort of where it's like, well, stiff. How do you break through?
I don't agree with that. I think that we become soft in the arena of delegation, right? That we want to be so polite, watch out for feelings, and be dandy around, hurting somebody's feelings when it's perfectly okay in who we are and how we are raised to pick up the phone and say, "You're gonna come learn how to do this with us this weekend. Be ready. Put on some boots. Bring some gloves, and you're gonna come learn this." Now that is who we are, right? That's where we've been, and we've come into this idea. I feel like my opinion anyway is that we've come into this idea. It's like well, we want them to want to know how to do it when given yeah, and we're gonna keep wanting that until there's they're old enough where people pass it on and it's too late, right? And then it's not wanting it anymore. It's like come learn how to do this. And I think that this could tie into what we've been talking about, relating services to how we do things, right? Like this committee could or council could potentially be that delegating authority. And it's like, you know what, we're going to pick 5 tribal members and we're going to have them, show up at the next memorial. They're going to help, right? And, somebody's going to be out with the fire, somebody's going to be helping pick food, or like all that stuff. And if they don't want to do it, that's fine, right? But that's also somebody speaking to their commitment to the people, right? Which should be tied into that service. If people are going to have a commitment to that person by way of services, then that should be, that should come back in the same way.
So I think I don't like you, but I think there's a balance. You have to help and approach a certain way, and because they may be soft, how do you keep still have to kids? There's always that balance. It's threading that knowing harshness. Sometimes it's great to have adult to be harsh. You don't have to be harsh, but at the same time, some people don't respond to that in a positive way. Yeah, it's probably more emotional person responded much. Yeah. So I think it's being able. I think we saw. What does that mean? Then, because there is going to have to be housing all in place. Have good. We have culture camp. I've talked about ceremonies, healing ceremonies, tribal as a tribe. It's just from us, and again, it's not about necessarily we want to move people with knowledge instead of knowledge. Yeah. Make something that's ours. We can still create stuff. We can create stuff. We can get back to the point where we're not just preserving, we're creating innovation. You heard say this too. We're doing it all the time, but we just don't. Our businesses creating that culture. There's going to be kids. My grandkids will probably look at my kids come to Quapaw. Minus lighting fireworks off, ball rocket wars on the chat house across the street, blowing fingers off, things like that. But so those things get created with us, and I think we need to know that. So I do, and I agree with things you're saying. How do we institutionalize it in a way? If you buy institutionalize it, how do we start building a system that becomes sustainable? And not necessarily be little. I have one uncle that was really good about it, and one uncle that made me feel like crap.
Yeah.
And I was able to handle that.
That's what I was speaking to. We need to get back to cultivating that hospitable nature that the Quapaws were known in history, right? We were known to be very hospitable.
Yeah, well, loving and supporting, and we can say, hey, we're gonna be loving, supportive, and we're gonna be. My goal is, for instance, is trying to raise them help. Still tied, still tied. So, your complexion and say, oh, you're part. Quapaws are not. Talk to him, and he doesn't mix. Can't tell. So he knows. So you can walk in. He's calm. How do we get to that pride? How do we get people who are coming back? For whatever reason, we have this separation. Again, I think formalizing something. I like the idea of that's the real lesson. Yeah, like picking people, say 5. Answers. I kind of like some element of that.
That's one thing that we didn't mention was, moving back towards like introducing planes back or having some sort of like,
Because I didn't think about that too. Like if you have, there were several people from different families there, and it was brought up like, well, I might do things differently than stuff they. How do you create a cohesive body when we've all done things differently? Maybe that's one people from each clan represents the other council. I don't know.
I mean, that would.
Yeah, we,
And
yeah,
the
we, yes, we saw that.
representative is the one that actually comes in.
So,
Could bring issues
What,
with it.
Right.
since you're a fresh perspective here, because we have kicked this around a little bit. I'm just curious, like how do we make that happen? Like if you guys just have a spitball, like ideas how to make that happen.
I think the first thing is everybody has to be able to know what they're doing. Like for my family, I've been told different things too. And then one, like, okay, so for Buffalo Grant plan, no, like, okay, what are we? And then okay, Fisher was their plan. I'm like, how's that? Okay, what are we? I don't know our plan. I think that's one of the things that the majority of the Quapaw families don't know their plan. Wasn't really
Talked about. or-
right.
That's
It
a
wasn't
good
discussed.
question.
It was kind of,
Would
so I think we need to start out by going back and researching the family.
Well, what about
Plans.
what Reese is doing, right? Reese is, said that Buffalo, family. I learned some things from that, I didn't know, City Brown's, father didn't know. And then saw his name, he didn't have an English name, it was written, like 4 or 5 different, on 5 different papers. But the one thing I would say in terms of plan is that Wallace were patriarch. So you would draw your plan from your father's side. Things go back far enough. It's
Yeah,
back
far
far.
enough.
So it's like, okay, what was?
That's
my
what I
grandmother-
think. Matrimonial.
Matrimonial,
Yeah,
like most of them.
It depends on where you go back.
Uh,
That's why they're called, what's the other word for plan? What's the other word?
oh, wait.
Yeah.
But still, how do
You
we,
go back far enough.
how do
Your
we
kids back
identify,
in place.
identify the family? Set up times for each one of those plans, have their own meetings, and them to identify the specific interest. And they represent their plan, they talk to their family, they find out what all the issues are, or concerns are, things, and and then they bring all of that. They have, like, state meeting or whatever, where the plan representatives can say, okay, and lay out what the issues are. And then we can discuss them, and they can discuss and make solutions, right?
So they
would
wouldn't
you be receptive to being
Ceremony.
by somebody?
Before you add ceremony, you have to put ceremony in, we had to have a survey, to find out if you already know, we need to know who has that information, who doesn't. Then, again, then you tie that to ceremony, again, all tribe ceremony,
Yeah.
where those things are given.
like
One way.
kind of like rejuvenate.
Yeah, revitalizing it, and
Revitalizing.
you're right up front about it, revitalizing. There are some people are gonna say, oh, that's not really. All right.
And now in my family, we've got so many people that have just kind of tried, Gallagher, Quapaw, whatever, were part of it, and whatever. And they don't really have anything to do with it. It's nothing, they're intimidated
Yeah, that's
by.
a shame that I
it's like,
was.
yeah, it's intimidating, and they're not comfortable for them to speak in the past, saying that they're afraid to ask. And say, I don't know, Tim. You need, I don't know, we need to get more information out there, education out there, whatever. I think the cultural committee is doing a whole lot with having classes out there, saying, okay, we've got these classes, come learn. But how do we reach out a little bit further? Because some of those, we need to reach further and say, look, you're a Quapaw member, you're important. We want you to be a part of everything that tribe is doing. And we want to bring you back into the fold, feel like you are. Because you really are. Your name, if you've got a roll number and your name's on that roll, or even if you're by blood,
And then you also have information.
Well,
Because we have a- So,
and I don't want
but
to.
no, I understand, but it's,
And it-
I'm saying it's
yeah, but
both.
then-
It's
yeah,
obligation and
it's
I
both.
agree with you. And also adding
Right.
And I don't want this to come across the wrong way, but you know, a lot of tribes, what they do is they create benefits to being here, right?
Right.
Like a lot of tribes are like, hey, even the ones that do per caps, they're like, if you want a per cap, you got to be so close to our reservation. Or if you want, some tribes will say, hey, we'll give you a chunk of land if you live within our reservation.
And I'm sorry, I just hired a Lumbee admin. She told me they have a test where kids have to take a test. Oh.
What you were talking about earlier, what can we do? We had a coming of age ceremony, right? There's other the girls, but we can have one for the same coming of age, right? Your last year of, you know, your secondary or what you're getting ready to go out, you know, it's like let's make sure you're outfitted with make sure you're outfitted with, you know, everything, you know, whatever may come out of that ceremony to be normal, right? Like they've got to be able to, you know, do certain things, you know. And there's things like that that we could that'll slowly, year by year, fold, you know, our traditions and cultures into individuals as they become adults.
I think the first thing we gotta do then is get rid of that. That fear is.
Yeah,
is,
that's the
critical
biggest thing.
Because there's so many people that do live away from here, right?
Mhm.
The majority of the tribe does not live within 50 miles. So there's a lot of people out there that might want to, but they're too scared to ask. And if we can get rid of that, when you talk about like coming of age, that's awesome. That's an awesome idea. But anyone living outside of that boundary that's too scared to come and ask, that can take.
No, it's a requirement. It's not a come and ask. It's like, hey, well, if you want Quapaw roll, it's your time to do. Yeah, you come to your coming of age, right? You come to your ceremony. You come home. You're put up. You know, your family's put up. Whoever's traveling with you, and we take care of it, right? We introduce you to all of this. Yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm.
And
I
it's a
mean,
yearly
but
thing that everybody, hey, that's coming. We know it's coming, so let's plan to be there.
but,
Mhm.
but,
Yeah.
but right there, you're stripping. Remember when, at that special council, discussed about removing benefits if you didn't do minimal participation within a certain amount of time. And it would because of numbers, right?
Well, it was
We're
an
saying-
uneducated opinion
But,
about a small piece of information.
but what we're saying here is, because right now, you're born, you get enrolled. As long as you're enrolled within a year, you get benefits,
Mhm.
right?
Well,
So what we're
that's
saying
where the
now-
Constitution is, right? That's where the Constitution comes in. That's where we could look to our elders council to make that definition, right? It's like, just because you're born, you know, does that make you Quapaw? Right?
I mean, that's tied to the blood, right? That's what we're saying right there, but if.
But whenever
I know what
you
you're saying.
come of age and you make a conscious choice to not be a participant in the tribe, what are you saying?
I'm just saying this would be contentious. I mean, minimal contentious because now you're saying you have to be at a certain age. Right? Now we're saying. you have to be
No,
18
I'm not
years.
saying you gotta be a certain age to get enrolled.
Well,
I'm
if
saying
you have
if,
to, if you have to, some
if-
sort of test.
if there's a potential for a coming of age ceremony and somebody opts not to participate, they're making a conscious choice, an educated choice to not participate. And that's fine. Nobody's forcing them to participate or not participate. That's their choice. But they're also making that choice to not be engaged with the culture and tradition that nation chooses. So it's not like we're saying it's like, oh, you have to do this or you have to. It's like, oh, you can choose not to do it. That's fine.
It's not even a question.
Mm-hmm.
It's just dumb.
I think at that point,
Mm-hmm.
I think at that point, the easiest way to do something like that was you'd have to do like a grandfather.
You have to build it. You have to build it in a way.
Yeah,
It attracts people. At some point, I'm telling you, within my grandkids' generation, that would be the tradition.
Yeah, and I'm not.
I wouldn't even say grandfathered in. I'd say, it's like, let's go.
If we started it
Somebody
tomorrow,
turned
I think it'd be a
17.
big deal. Like, it's-
How many?
But
Do you know how many people are turning 17? Very
No,
few.
I kind of like the idea, but I also see some issues with that. Is just like you have some non-traditional students in education. You may have some family that chose to not have their child. They were convinced to not participate with the Quapaw traditions and customs and stuff. But then they get older and they turn 30, 40 years old and they're like, wait a minute, I'm Quapaw. I really want to know about that. I really want to know more about it. I think I want to learn more. I want to be, I at that point in time they decided they want to come back to the tribe and they want to be in the tribe. Have they completely missed their opportunity at that point?
Well, according to our current system. But at that point, nobody is saying that you're out of the tribe. We're not removing anybody from the
You
tribe.
can't be enrolled. So if you're
No,
not
who's saying you can't be enrolled?
No, we're not.
then-
We're not
Yeah.
tying that.
No, this ain't enrollment at all. No,
Maybe benefits.
maybe.
Maybe.
I mean, it's gonna
Well,
look a
then
lot
just
different
something
whenever
that
we have
education's
history.
I
Well,
think
yeah.
I like having coming of age ceremony, and I like that, but I think there's a lot of problems that would come in if we tie it to, well, if you don't do this, then you don't get this.
See, I think
That-
we're
that
looking at
kind of-
this, a little backwards because we're already trying to colonialize a ceremonial idea of, relieving the fear, right? How do we do that our way? We make a ceremony to engage people. We don't want to bring in this idea of it's like, oh, if you don't do this, then this, right? That's punitive. That's punitive, right?
Yeah.
Right.
The
So,
ceremony that relieves that spirit, that anxious spirit. That's
Mhm.
what the ceremony's about. Say, okay,
Yes.
that's gone.
mhm.
Now you don't have to do
But I think that the elders still, the elder said, there was my generation. Them, they were saying, there's my generation who, I was told, you're gonna come and learn. And then there was a generation where all that dropped off. There was like nobody came around. Nobody, well, no, just like nobody from a certain generation really came around, right? They just all stopped, and nobody knew how to do anything. And then this next generation, you kind of see that revitalization of, oh, we want to know how to do this thing. But that gap.
Knowledge
so,
that's-
it. And that gaps there, again, the gaps are there on purpose. Gaps that we didn't use our language. So we have generations of points on purpose to separate. I just got to listen to, I didn't realize this land podcast had series on it too. Have you heard that one?
I've heard of the podcast. I haven't heard
Yeah,
about that.
it's the one about the first season's about and then the second season. And it's amazing how this ties into. So that generation of the whole point of taking things Indian was to begin to disrupt that. So those things are all systematic. So we have to build something that not only combats that, takes us, because we still all think in terms, unfortunately. Because we have all those disconnects. So we have people who went to boarding schools. My grandparents went to boarding schools. They were actively being separated. Purpose, again, people on purpose, they think kids away, and it's still happening. They're still taking kids away. And the idea is that they can't be raised by grandparents. That's not the way.
and that works. That works too for a lot of them. For instance, my great grandmother was the last one We're Cherokee, you know, our family got Cherokee. Well, but my great grandmother was the last one.
So we have to build something that actively actively butts up against that. Gives us cultural. I kind of come back to ceremony. This can, in a lot of ways, can be so, or a yearly ceremony. How to bring, maybe it is back to the blanket ceremony. Maybe that's it, or maybe it's said, young people. You know, how do we, at least how do we start? If you think of ghost dances, that's not revitalization. It's just annihilation. It was and it was, you know, but we're just saying, that starts.
You're not saying that it has to be different, but more just something ceremonial where we say, like even when you talk about the blankets.
Or something like that.
Yeah, just something, okay.
Yeah, but I mean,
But come home to do it.
They have to
Yeah.
come home.
Come home to get smoked off. Come home to, you know,
relatives.
Well, this leads into something else that was talked about. I mean, we've all discussed this at length, right? Absentees, coming back to general. The thing that bothers me the most about general council is that more people right now go for our tribal princess or tribal leader than do any of our the tribal princess. Actually, more people voting for our tribal princess than do for our princess. And that was brought up. The elders brought that up. That why do you even allow absentees if more people are voting in a general?
I know that we do the general council voting, and this is where it gets convoluted out. Especially if you haven't been active in how things are being done, you're not familiar with our election ordinance. I happen to disagree with parts of our election ordinance. Is that you have to be at general council to vote on certain things. But then you have this other election out here where you have to be registered to vote on these things over here. But it all affects everything with the tribe. Why is it that we have two completely separate pieces of people who can vote on the different things?
Well,
That's on it's on the list of stuff that will be addressed.
I mean, but
with the election ordinance, because there shouldn't be, right? Like when you turn 18, it should be full time. Or if you
If you're enrolled and you
going
turn
into-
18, it should be an automatic registration.
or if you're emancipated, or if you're living on your own, or if you graduated college, you know, high school, and you're 16, you know, it's like you've made it far enough to have an opinion on how this nation's being ran. 18 seems to be the magic number, but you know, I mean, people qualify for making a decision. Somebody is willing to put their life on the line and, you know, be in service, you know, a little sooner than, you know, 18. I trust you.
Yeah.
That's my opinion, anyway, but it shouldn't be just tied to
Whether you actually go send in the documents to register to vote, you have to prove again that you're on the rolls.
I mean, if I'm on the roll, you know how old I am. It says right there. how old I am. But I mean, it's an imperfect system. I think that there's a lot that wants to bring elections back to council, back to July 4th. How's that going to happen in today's system? I don't know.
I think it's
got to explore it.
because we've got so many people that are spread out. It's hard. There's a lot of people. I mean, some people that live in Oregon, or they live in Washington State or California. Getting back here for the 4th of July weekend for general council is difficult, especially if you've got kids that are in school. It's hard. Or if you have a job or a career or something that doesn't allow you to take that much time away. You may have that holiday and that day only, but if you're living that far away, you can't get back there.
Well,
So I
maybe-
think
maybe
they
we
should
say-
There
be
are
able
people
to
though that
voice.
plan their year around that.
You do, yeah.
I mean, there's lots of people that do that every year that plan to, like, I'm coming home, and they make it happen.
Well,
And,
There's-
and you know,
there's-
July
Of
4th,
course,
2026 is coming, right? You know it's coming.
Right, but there's still, I mean, even if some of those that do want to have a voice in what's going on, we should be able to allow them to have a voice even if they're.
Well, maybe
And I
we
guess
all get a
that's-
$75 gas card, right? Maybe we say, hey, this is actually attached to how much you get a certain percent per mileage. So those families that do live in California, they can come back. People like me that live close, I don't need much gas.
I see what you're saying now. I mean, realistically, got elder unable to make the trip in multiple states. And it's not a matter of, oh, you just got a plan. It's like, no, right? How do we make it possible?
Like,
We've got to know their situation, right? This isn't an election. It's happening tomorrow. We don't know our own tribal members. And if we don't know our own tribal member situation, why not? What are we doing, right? What are we
Then we
doing
need to
to not
reach
set
out
up our
to-
business committee to know this information? Not set up our election committee to know this information. We have it all collected. We only have 1,600 people now. And we should be able to know the situation for these 1,600. Not to send 100, absentee ballots out because those 100 people can't make it. All right. Still vote ahead.
right.
So there's a lot of ways around it, or around what we're doing to include absentee ballots. But there is a large portion of those. I think that it should all be done at general council, right?
Well, with technology, there's nothing that says that we can't online vote, right? And
Yeah.
I there's people out
Reason
there,
that we can't.
there's people out there that say, well, how do you trust that that's not somebody else? Well, I know the absentee ballot process right now, and me as a walk-in, I have to give more information than the
The
individual
person, yeah,
absentee.
the absentee.
It's crazy.
Server right now, we hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, that years of absentee ballots, you're like, huh.
Well, and honestly, I
And
think
there are ways to be able to identify yourself.
you got, on
There's-
the phone, you have to put your fingerprint in.
Well, not
Oh,
just
yeah,
that, but I mean,
barcodes, all kinds of stuff.
the U.S. government even has ways to be able to identify yourself. The state of Oklahoma, if you want to renew your driver's license or you want to do something that's online and you want to sign up for something and you have to prove who you are, you have to take a picture of your ID. You have to take a picture of your face. So you take a picture of your ID, take a picture of your face, and that identifies you. There's ways to identify.
Facial recognition.
Yeah, and that's
how they.
there are ways for, if we want to do electronic votes during general council, there's ways to be identify who that person is that's actually making that vote. If you're there, if you're like,
Yeah, we could
you
make
have
it.
to have a camera that, your phone that shows your face, and your face matches what,
It'd be interesting to
we
see
have.
if we did implement something like that. Just to see how much that changed. How many more people if we had something. Because at that point, you've done everything to make it as easy as
Convenient,
It's
exactly.
convenient.
Yes.
to vote, right? Not that it is that hard right now, but still, I think people are. I don't want to walk to the mailbox and put an absentee in.
I mean,
but
if
they
you
can
could-
hold their phone. And,
If you can log into your
Yeah.
bank account on your phone,
well, see, and to log into my bank account. My phone. That's how.
so we do have large population that's not ready. Literally, physically,
Yeah, I think
not
it's
ready for
five.
that. Technology. But we can start getting ready for it. In and every year we close that gap with education, we close that gap with direct individual assistance for each of these individuals that can't participate because of that understanding around technology. We could do it.
Yeah.
Stitch. Yeah, I don't know there.
I mean, even if there was nobody going to. Many minor.
So what's all this got to do with Constitution?
This is a huge part of the Constitution. I mean, when we talk about amendments, even going back to the 90s, a lot of the amendments started around. Look at the absentee came before the absentee amendment came before the election ordinance. And the election ordinance is actually the second election ordinance, not the first one. The one that came through, I think, in 2000 or maybe it's 2001, that they put that forth. It got voted on and approved at the general council. And they're like, oh no, hold on, man, we don't like this.
There was a special, I think
Not the
2004
first one.
was the special
That
general
was the one
council.
we're at now.
Yeah, and I think there were only just a little over 100 people that
That one,
attended that one.
no, there was close to 200, but I think that I think it was eight votes that actually passed out. And there was a lot of information that was thrown in there that, if you look at it, right, it was called a draft. It was even called, and they said, hey, we're gonna come back in April and we're gonna vote on this again. We're gonna give, we're gonna give a chance. The meeting in April never took place. And it was never brought up at the actual annual town. So it just kind of floated through. We ran off this draft, 20 years, almost 20 years. But, there was the system that we had before, even back then, the things that were going, it was hard to follow. I think we've done a tremendous job of making it easy to follow what's going on. If you look at, Quapaw Nation, the YouTube page, every single VC go back. Now that we've had these amendments, you can see the agenda week before, 10 days before, or I should say presentation. You can see 10 days before. That's huge.
We're getting closer to 10 days. Not quite.
Yeah, we did last month. We couldn't find it. It was on there.
Yeah, I thought it was on there, but
It
you
was.
just couldn't find it.
We couldn't
Oh,
find it.
the date on there was.
So again,
But
try to do that. And then,
Yeah.
then we can make.
Yeah,
Because that's information.
Well, and they've gotten better with, now we've got a mediator, moderator on, right? And if you want to talk, you have to, you can't just be some random, Apple or iPhone 7 or something. You can't do that. So I think that they've gotten a lot better with that. Definitely see direction. But we're still building towards that.
So the idea of like, what are we doing? Is culture, it's built in already. It's Quapaw. And or do those things parallel? And then also, did you get my email about university? knows, he has opinions about how things works well and how constitutions have integrated specific tribal culture.
Did you reach out to him?
I have not.
Or is-
I wanted to get okay. from
Yeah,
everybody.
yeah, so-
Yeah, please.
I talked to a friend who's a lawyer. Oh my God.
He said,
And
dude,
my wife knows.
I'm still
Yeah,
on
go
the
ahead
meeting.
and make the contact, and then loop me in.
I wanted to make sure. He's saying it's podcast. Yeah, you look him up. University of Michigan, he's national.
I'm still of the opinion that the preamble is really what sets the stage. And if you look back at, what was that? The first thing we sent? Bill or Chile or
Olivia.
Bolivia? That's the preamble for the Bolivian Constitution. It's good, and I think that's where we start with it. That's what we do.
And I think, again, to I guess reframe when we start thinking about people's insecurities, that scared, they don't know something. You gotta remember, that's the direct cause. That's that feeling that's put there. That's what we have to make sure. Everything we build, we acknowledge this. That was put there on purpose. That's not. So, at what point it becomes okay? Now this is yours. So, how you build up. So and I know it's real. I know those feelings are real, but the reality is that's splitting kind of that, what do you call softness or directness? Well, why don't you just come around? Why don't you just engage? Why don't this parents
Yeah, you didn't do it before. We get it.
Yeah.
We understand.
but also understand this that because of this baggage that we have to make sure we also softness and work with this.
It's like taking some time to do the massive because I think everybody, because of the trauma that can cause intergenerationally, there needs to be some things that we do to heal everyone and let them know, make them feel comfortable. Come back there, be a part of this. This is who you are. This is a part of who you are. It's in your blood, it's in your lineage.
We're here.
Yes.
And,
Your
and
family.
if you don't want to be part of that,
But if you decide later on, you
But
wanna
that
be part
healing
of it,
starts
it's
here,
okay.
right? When our officials are part of all of that, they're demonstrating on a monthly, at a minimum, monthly basis. Future potentially more than a monthly basis, right? Requires, that's the Constitution, right? Require that of they're sitting here. How do things they demonstrate. This is the easy part. Is this is what we can mandate, right? Mandate this change, and then so circling back to the Constitution, you know, circling back around to what this structure, moral structure, start to identify as our government. Clear as day, Indian Council, the supreme authority of the nation. then what, right? Then we've got our business committee, lateral, grievance committee, we've got a lateral, our ethics commission. These are all elected officials, right? And then we have potentially an elders council and how that fits in, where that fits in. They don't have any punitive authority. They don't have any. I'm going to say that they. I don't know.
But when it- yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's like.
Yeah, maybe this is another survey, you know, maybe it's, and I'm not saying that it comes, you know, maybe this is, how, do you believe we need to know this? What do you believe?
What would an elders council?
You can ask. You can ask those kind of questions. Culture specific. You're gonna get
Well,
responses.
I think we can have a very broad kind of, we can talk about DC roles. I think we can put together a portion survey that we have put out here, right? According to DC. But we can also put the other council, talk about a coming of age ceremony, giving legal things there. I know that in a previous survey.
I wouldn't say how would they. How would they look, but that's, but I understand. It's a-
But yeah, I think we could. It has a lot of.
But circling back to structure.
I mean, obviously, we can, but, you know, there's so many different avenues that we've explored in our three arms of the government. Still think this is figure out the rest of the structure.
Right. But we've got to lead.
Yeah, have options.
Exactly. So what are the options? That's right. So be more direct. We've talked about this for the past 2 months. What are our opinions? We spent a few meetings, dialing in possibilities of what these different facets could look like. We have our current system, our current setup. Established a larger grievance committee. Established an ethics commission. They're underway. They're starting their process. How do we enhance that, and how do we create governance with that? What are some options that we have with that, based on our conversation that we had? 'Cause that's going to lead us to survey that we're looking for, and how to solicit information more properly. Here's where we are now. Identify the questions.
So we've all gone through different constitutions. Maybe that's where we're starting to say, like for instance, the one that really stood out to me the most was the Eastern Giants. And the reason was because in their constitution they have a Bill of Rights. They have, and I realize again, the chief system costs or blah blah, but they have a chief who is the supreme body, or not the supreme body, but the supreme voice for the supreme body. They are the voice of the general council. And they have the business committee who's charged, who's basically like the legislators, right? They write the laws, and then the chief, that branch, can veto those laws based on what the general council. I don't know what you would call that. I don't know. That's mine. Derek, what Constitution stood out to you?
Well, aspects of all of it. I didn't see one that just that's it. But I do think that the different structure. I like the idea of having something. I kind of go back to something. And they can bring those issues to convene their plan or stuff. Some way to get away from
Yeah, I mean, and that was brought up. One of the elders said that they, one of their professors had told them that this works for them. I don't know. I mean, that's just the elders. I don't know how true that is, but I do think that there's.
we're given this.
Well, I do.
That's a reason why.
It's a pattern after the,
Exactly.
yeah.
I think any form of government. In it, right? Politics, right? It's clear that there's power, but I am still a firm believer in three parties or three forms of government. Free accountability. I think
But what's the,
accountability is a big thing.
so other than the legislative executive, how do we incorporate this third or the third?
We've talked about the judicial, and its connection to general counsel, right? Because judicial.
General counsel is
Judicial. Well, when you think of judicial, you think of like law and order, right? You have the courts, right? But not everything needs a court, or not everything needs to go to the court.
Wouldn't grievance be part of judicial?
Yeah, the grievance committee too. But,
Grievance and ethics would actually
It
be
is judicial.
part of
Yeah.
judicial?
Yeah, I guess, yeah. That way, definitely. So it'd be grievance, ethics, and courts, right? So would that make, general counsel would be, I guess, actually, maybe, executive, it'd be the executive.
Yeah.
Or,
I have a quick question, just to clarify, the definition of the members of general council, is that only those that are enrolled, or does that include Quapaw by blood that's not enrolled because they're enrolled?
that's conversation. Too, right? Brought up earlier. If some individuals can vote in something.
Yeah,
Well,
because by
we-
blood
we-
can vote, can
we-
register to vote, and they can vote in our election, like before, or,
But we kind of went through that, right? We saw that when we pushed some of these amendments through, and we met with the general counsel 3 times, and we pointed out, hey, the grievance committee is the only committee that you can sit on as Quapaw by blood. Which just so happens to be a committee that has authority over the BC.
Which then, if you want to start splitting hairs,
Yeah, like it's,
You can get in, you
Yeah,
can
so there's,
unroll a
there-
whole.
yeah,
ball.
there's gotta be some
That's-
consistency as far as, okay, are we gonna open everything up to? Everything up to those that qualifies by blood? And it not just be those that are enrolled? Or I think we better reconcile this, because we need to be consistent across.
I like the idea of the inclusion. And my reasoning is because they are a word, right? Just because somebody else told them
And
they couldn't,
their
which
children could, even though they're not enrolled, their
Yeah.
children could still enroll.
Well, I think in some cases, and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong here, but I think it, like Red Eagle individual, I think his child also is from like him, his child's toys, the child was still, underage. But, getting back to what I was saying, they're a part of the tribe. just because somebody said you couldn't be, like, there's a lot of that is the situation I'm talking about. A lot of tribes said, oh, you can't be dual enrollment. And so these individuals left Quapaw as a tribe. And it's something, right? I don't think they would have left in something like that.
Again, getting back to what Derek said in the past too, that was all thrust upon
Yeah.
too. Like, oh, you can't be over there if you're gonna be over here, so you can't
Yeah.
participate with them if you're gonna participate over here. That's,
So this is all,
There's
all
a lot
general
of,
council should be all enrolled members and
I think so. I think so, but that's just
we need to get rid of
that. And
it.
that's,
If you're
that's-
Quapaw, you're Quapaw. By blood is. That's
It's-
just my
it-
opinion. I think that should be thrown out. Because it doesn't matter one way or the other. Because we could say, if you were Quapaw. Saying the exact same thing. So
But
that
it is, because just all those terminology. Again, it's something like this made.
that's where a lot of these rumors spur, right?
It's like that.
Okay. There's a lot of things that could make you not vote. If you look back at our history, there's a lot of things, not just like, there's a lot of confusion around the enrollment that happened back in the 1890s. Individuals from Arkansas and Osage Country came back, and the BIA director was like, or the Indian agent was like, now you have to re-enroll them. Because that Indian agent was trying to push the Osage and Quapaws together. Set that didn't work. That we got enough people to come back. It's like, but I mean, you know what I mean? That's
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I'm saying.
but that's
walking.
there's a lot of confusion around that. There's if you listen to some of the old Mod stories, or you go on and you actually those Mod talks about how we would basically go and have war with the entire tribe, and we would basically kill off everybody in that village except for children. Take the children. Right. So I mean, right there, those individuals probably weren't. I mean, they're not.
Well, so we get caught up in again.
There's a lot of things we get caught up in.
I did.
That's
I wrote an article. Women and children came here and our tribe. So again, those are we're
There's so
all
much
working from these Western constructs idea. I really encourage everybody to listen to that podcast, the second season, because even the arguments that we use they're being funded by Chevron, big lawyers, lawyers. They say biological. Not biological. That's their argument. And it's been used to get the casinos.
And you and I have talked about this a lot. How there's so many thoughts. Like you said, your son is my skin complexion. Okay. I don't know if you've seen Derek's wife, but she's not very white looking either. Like the whole idea of everybody needs to do a DNA test for her. That is such a
well, and it's like you look at my siblings and they have the black hair, the brown eyes, the dark complexion and everything. I got all this. None of them
right?
are, they don't participate with any of this. I
Like
do.
your son could get tested and come back as 0%.
Well,
That's-
okay, but that I could get tested.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but so the DNA. So I think I've told you this before, but yeah,
Huge moneymaker, that's all.
Yeah. And again, race is a social construction. So it's not just the one genetic component is you know, and so that's why they're saying single games like so there's no reason it should so it's this lens again it's looking at
You don't want that in here.
yeah you're not
You're Anna and me, Anna dark. And I am white.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. That's why it's absurd. I mean, it's just a total, and we've adopted it. But in our constitution, right? We get to stop thinking about this, figure out really what makes us wrong. And then it's our fate. But it's also
And
about
so much back then, I mean, even if you were adopted and you grew up like that, nobody was questioning that back in those days.
That's
It's like, hey,
One of my favorite pictures is actually in, it's all of them at Haskell, right, sitting on the steps. And you see individuals as light as me and individuals as dark as my great grandfather standing next to each other. It's clear, nobody in that picture was saying, hey, you're not wrong. And I've talked to Billy Parker about this before, and it's because of the introduction. I mean, there's really no other way to describe it. And so even if the way he said it was, it's like a football team, right? And we've all been playing together, all from kindergarten all the way up, and we get into high school, and our buddy joins. You know, he's our friend, but he has been a part of the football team, and we win state that year. And he's celebrating the same way we're celebrating, but he hasn't been.
my aunt calls it casino.
Yeah. Well, it's the same idea, like same principle is, we don't look at people the same because now, even if you enrolled for the right reasons today, you're still questioned because now there's money.
And that's why we have some pathways. This again, the reason we're fried is because we had values lived together, and then the reason we were persecuted is values that were Western ideas, and we had
Well, it's because tribes are you can't argue against. There's no tribe that's capitalist.
yeah.
It is.
Yeah, like
it's got social tendencies.
I don't know if she's smiling, but her comments about, because she's fighting, she's talking about individual land rights. That's the basis of Western law. It's about actually individual land rights.
Well, and that's the thing too. We talk about.
Contrary.
I brought up, and this was Roman actually had this idea. I was thinking of it as well, but we talked about law and how Longhorn affected or would affect bear. And the reason is because Longhorn basically said, yeah, you guys self-allotted, but that didn't get rid of their reservation, right? Their reservation still exists, and a lot of these things that are in bear go back before law. You talk about breaking treaty, right? You talk about you said you were going to give us 2 cards of corn, you only gave us 1. That stuff is what bear is. People don't look
But
at that.
even if what the idea that we again part of assimilation was for acres.
But before that, our option was
We did some of that, but we
before
didn't.
that was you live in this log cabin, and if you want to make any improvements to the land, you come and ask us. That was the way it was. So of course.
So we did that, and we still.
Weren't a lot of log cabins destroyed during?
Yeah, I mean, and that there's so many things that led to the disbursement of Quapaw. Not living up to the treaty rights, the Civil War breaking out, and whether it's Union or Confederate soldiers coming and staying here or causing this restaurant. There's so many things. But the whole point is, we couldn't, before they allotted the land, you couldn't make improvements to the land. You couldn't do anything to the land. You had to ask the Indian agent, hey, can I plant a field? Or hey, we'd like to get some farming equipment. And the Indian agent would say, I'll purchase it for you, no problem.
What's up?
And then
It's gonna cost you $10,000. And you know, he's like, he still have $100. And I think it was Katie Berry Pratt actually brought that up at that it said like there was proof where this Indian agent had collected well over $1 million from people's IIM.
Well, my granddad had a loan. He had a loan. He sacrificed. And got a loan and he paid it back. And the agent said, well, he paid this back too fast. And everybody here was too smart. Good, and he was too smart.
And you see that, I mean, you go back to the record, you see that all throughout the record, they couldn't comprehend. So that's why we're taking care of stuff.
Yeah. So I think really we come back to that's what I mean, you can ask that. Quapaw Post asks the people running for office. You know,
Yeah.
what is, when I say that, to see if there's a collective, an easy collective, say, okay, or do we just rely on people? We have, have a big enough group of people that we say we trust you. And the language and cultural mission. Guide us.
If that's the only question.
We'll explore everything else. I think that's, I mean, and that gives us a foundation.
And then we can take that as
We can build a foundation.
That's gonna make a lot of people's heads hurt. But yeah,
I mean, it makes,
I think it's a good idea
it
because
makes all, I
it
think
makes us all
doesn't
stop
matter
and
what
think.
you do, I think everyone said.
What makes us Quapaw? How is it that we're Quapaw? What does it mean to you to be Quapaw?
My idea of when, and it can be minimal, right? It can be voting, that's minimal. But, yeah, there's some individuals, and it's contentious to say, but there's some individuals who aren't Quapaw that I believe act on Quapaw. They're out there watching the fire. They don't have any, they don't have to do that. They're out there digging with one of our relatives, things like that. Does that mean I'm right that thing happens? Look back at it, again, it takes some tribe, by nature, everybody works together, everybody helps capacity. Whether you were out, foraging or you're out, catching the meal with them, whatever it may be, everybody works together. And so, I think.
all right. So let's say we get that question asked, answered. Sorry to cut you off.
No, that's right.
So we get that asked, gets answered. What do we do with that information?
We can, then I'll just do that. Obviously. We can sit there and map it out. There is software.
It's thrown at this map in the,
It takes qualitative data. Categories. Quantifies it to a degree. But it still could like pick up words. Yeah, but we could also do that. AI. cannabis beetle.
They sound like words that put together. Yeah, you know, 75, let's say.
Out loud, there's popcorn.
What if some people, what if some,
Yes.
Fair money.
So how are we gonna use that?
so we had to put something, a qualifier. What does it need to be?
Even right, yeah.
What does it need to be? Qualified? I guess it's like, I don't know if you need. You can say, what does it mean to be, what does it mean to be qualified? What does it mean to be qualified?
What helps you identify as.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the qualifier, yeah. That's my guess. And we might, yeah. Social services, might.
What do you know?
And what do you want it to be? Easy threads that might even make thread to the Constitution. Maybe do this there. Formalizes some kind of ceremony or whatever, cultural aspect. Constitution. Tightening up the Constitution. Then we can start saying. How do they? It's culture track. It's walk track. Ceremony. Social ills, and then start integrating some cultural, what we call qualified aspects, which is qualified aspects. How do we integrate those? Integrate, have a plan, come back in, keep those separate for a while, and see. So it's not just, hey, we're changing everything, here it is.
So it seems like a gamble.
Like a 10-year, like a strategic plan. Yeah. And it might start with young people. It might start from, if you're born before this date, this is how this information. Say it this way, you should know, but we create a way that's not just you have to. But it's a way that it's just that first initiation ceremony. It's responsible.
Do we put cultural classes online? So that people that are here in the area that can't attend some of the cultural things, they can learn.
I think to me, to get to have to be, but there also has to be. We want, I mean,
There could be all kinds of YouTube, I mean, you could just, possibilities, right, just make podcasts or.
That's what I wanted.
And-
Yeah, I've been talking about podcasts forever. Or even like just, we could have language like once a week or
It's
something.
like they're tying in for your education benefits to.
Well, that's something, because, you know, like even talk about the education, how the education, higher education, is more of a requirement than there is, it's not easy, right? about language, you know, and they can go back.
Well, for now, it's on the BC. That's one of the things that I was. You have to go get a signature to register to run. Whereas I would rather see it, you have to go to an elders panel and get interview questions.
I'm not,
So
I'm not
everybody with
against
50
that.
bucks just can't come in and.
well,
You need to
and
go
they're not
through-
wasting their money at that point either.
Other places, it's like five, some places
Like, you know what I mean?
require
Like-
500 or 1,000 or 2,500.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a good idea to have you have to go get 50 something. I mean, I would rather see that than $50. Not that you have to put up more than $50. Yes. At that point, anybody can just like,
Well, I myself, I'd just like to see them go through elder panel and
they
answer
have to
the
go, they have
questions
to get a vote.
and be approved by.
Or even the plan, right? We do the plan, it's like,
Yeah, you have to go to the representative.
Yeah.
And then what I like about that is it implies you have to be there.
Yes, and you have to do it the proper way. The proper way you take
let's say you
I'm
have,
bringing you some tobacco and some thought and some.
let's say you have, let's say you have 26 plans, you have to have 13.
Oh, no. 75%.
Well,
I want it to be a little more scrutiny. to
yeah, I mean,
who's making the decisions.
but to get the approval of, if you're talking about 26 people, to get the approval of 13, I think it's still, to run, that's just.
Yeah, exactly.
But your family would all be eating one.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, sure.
Only one candidate for?
But the old way would, there's one candidate.
If they go unopposed, I can talk about that.
Yeah, like the guy, gets our job.
We've had,
He's been unopposed for however many years. Yeah.
we've had a couple, elections where,
Yeah, but according, so the old way was before the election ordinance. They could be, no, and I want to say that they could actually. Cali. Ran unopposed.
where does it say that we can't?
But it does say that the election ordinance overrides the.
No, it doesn't.
No, it repeals and replaces all of the laws related to elections or whatever.
Yeah. Where it's specifically, only where it's specific, right? It supersedes the government resolution, only in specific spots.
Election laws.
But the election ordinance is very flawed and it does not, like, to repeal or to call somebody. You know what? I don't like the color of your hair. I could recall you.
Yeah, we
Okay,
talked about that, but it
It's very flawed.
so the idea with what we're talking about here, bringing it all back, it's back to structure, right? Election ordinance plays a factor. Roles play a factor. What makes us Quapaw doesn't really play a factor, but from our conversation, that's the biggest deal, right? Like that's got the utmost importance of something we need to know. But what makes us Quapaw is that, you know, that how we define ourselves in the Constitution, possibly, but does it factor into the structure of our government? Does elections factor into the structure? Roles, we've discussed, was like, no, this is why how we ended up back with structure. It was like we can't get anywhere on roles until we know what type of government they're going to be sitting in. Right? Circling back around with these last 15 minutes, we gotta have product here, right? What we're moving forward with and what we're going to be presenting as a viable option. Keep coming back to having that viable option. Johnny mentioned the three-branch system, and I didn't get all the notes in, but I did hear you on that three-branch system. Let's talk about that again. What, ideally, what is the three-branch system?
Well, and again, this is different with every tribe. I think a lot of the tribes do already. Look at Choctaws. They have a governor and they have their legislators.
So how do we paint that for ourselves?
I don't. We have to find words that are Quapaw. As we said earlier,
All right, for the sake of not having any words, let's call it what they are today. We know that that's got to be adjusted. Right?
the business committee would be the legislators, right? They would write the laws. General counsel needs, general counsel needs a voice. And what is that called? Executive officer, president, governor.
So you're saying an individual speaking on behalf.
Yes.
So
Family
basically,
owner. Well,
so like your clan leaders, and then the clan leaders would be able to identify two of their group who actually could be the representatives, an executive representative. I actually just like.
yeah, we talk about.
So I'm saying a tribal
Executive
leader.
branch.
Tribal leader.
Yeah.
Just for sake of.
Yeah, I think we did that. We said that before. The executive branch, and our judicial is election. That's our grievance committee. That's our ethics commission. Right. That's.
Why do
what I see.
why do we need a judicial? I'm not yes, but I'm saying
Accountability.
let's talk this out.
Accountability.
Accountability,
And separation of duties,
separation of duties is happening with
the three branches,
executives and judicial
executive and legislature.
or executive.
Separation of duties, but judicial needs to be there to handle issues. Well, not just ethics, but I mean to enforce the
What was
laws.
that? Yes. Yeah, I think, even under the system that we are, it's a flawed three-branch system, right? Because even if you look back, I mean, we're trying to repair a lot of the holes in those amendments. We gave the grievance committee more authority, right? We established an ethics commission. Like I think general counsel even sees a need for three branches. Just have a call that made that clear separation. But they see it, I know that general counsel. What's wrong with the system? Why do we need different? We have a leadership.
Lack of direction. So lack of clarity and duties, lack of clarity and responsibilities relating to
Define what a member should do, not
And that was,
chair, vice
that
chair.
was another
So
thing I
all
like
of
about
that-
these for Johnny. Now, it wasn't like anything crazy, there wasn't pages upon pages of roles, but did have roles. Each position had a description of what. And I'm not, we've gone over the whole job description thing. I don't know any elected official that has a job description.
When
But
it's
they
not,
still know what their jobs are. They still, I think there's,
Everybody has a little bit of an idea, different idea of what the business committee does. I think there's a lot of confusion.
we don't know now,
Out there.
right?
And I think it's always kind of been one of those things where it's like, here, these things need to be done, we're gonna divvy it up between us, and everybody's gonna do their thing, and just keep things rolling.
And Romy, you spoke to the fact that some of our current BC members are working 60 hours. And that others aren't. And I think that that's because, as we've seen in our surveys, where we surveyed the BC, not this one, but past BC, they didn't know. A lot of them were just kind of like, oh, this is where I derive my authority. And you go back and you look, and there was nothing that really gave them authority in that place. It didn't even mention it.
so I still have a problem with the idea of having strong schools. I understand what you're saying. The idea of saying, I think the United States president does not have. So it's so maybe it's just not maybe it's word job description.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
There are some things that are out there, there's some regulations that are written as far as what you can. I mean, you
Or
can
the
do
office,
things
the
that-
office of the
There's
president.
just guardrails because they need to be able to, to move in that space and not just say, I'm supposed to.
But there has to, there has to be some form. There's gotta be guidelines, but there's gotta be lines that you don't.
Well, and then, I mean,
Especially
that
when
would be
it-
more roles.
Yeah, that's why I said we've gone back and forth. with job description.
This is your role, you're the legislative body. This is your
Yeah. I don't like the idea of saying the chairman's role is this. I would rather say the business committee's role. Like the business committee's role is to write laws.
But the chairman has a little bit higher, chairman and co-chair.
Well, yeah.
vice chair have a little bit higher of an elevation over the rest of the committee.
Well, that's nothing. That's right
Because
there.
they are the face to, not just to the Quapaw members, but to people outside, to the general public. They're representing us, and they're our
Main
face.
dignitaries.
Yes,
See that? Yes.
they're our main
And we
dignitaries.
discussed that as well. See, that's another indication of the fact that Quapaw Nation sees that the chairman and the vice chair have more influence, or that they are on a different plane than the members, right?
Just because
Sometimes.
sometimes.
Well,
just-
for majority,
And
and we've
just
heard-
because of the titles, but yes, we do put our chair and our vice chair.
pay, look at pay, right? Even in that, I think, going back to what general counsel told us, we were okay, I think, with paying our chairman, vice chair, secretary, maybe not to the level that they got to, but I think we're all okay with like, oh yeah, I think they deserve more than the members. Even if we look at, ability to be elected, there's individuals that run for member, and we don't really look at their qualifications. Or like, what are they doing? Are they helping? That kind of stuff. But I don't believe that those individuals would have the same opportunity to come in and be a chairman, right? And there's people that say that, like, well, you can't just automatically. I've heard this many times. Why are you automatically going for vice chair, or why are you going for chairman?
You got no experience in BC.
Yeah, you have no experience on the BC. Why are you trying to go for the top spot, right away. Like we do see that. But
So how do we codify that?
either that's not.
And then I start thinking about numbers too. How many positions we have qualifying? That's why. Term limits is not a good thing.
I like the idea of not so much term limits, but saying if you serve for 2 terms, you have to sit out one. Because I also don't like the idea of, and we put ourselves in this position where you have the same leaders for 20 years, and everything changes overnight, and nobody knows what to do, right? Nobody knew what you had to be chairman. Nobody knew how to be vice chair, secretary, treasurer. Stop.
And again, I totally get what you're saying. And I don't necessarily agree with what you're going to say, but what about the stability? What about it? What did that stability? Well,
Depends on who you ask.
depends on-
Depends on who you
Is
ask.
there a date in the line there, or is it progression? So,
I think
So that's-
when
check-
when there's proper authority that rests in the
check and
people.
balances.
Yes.
yeah, I think that.
Us. When there's
Yeah.
proper authority there, keep leading. We'll stop you. We have the authority now to put it to a stop
That's what I'm
outside
trying
of
to
a
figure out
regular
what-
election.
Why? Kind of going back to square one. Why? What do we want to change? Not just in reaction to, but what do we want to change? Better systems, built in. Yeah, I still, so that, then still we want stability. Stability typically works well. And I don't know enough about the Chickasaws or the Choctaws for that matter. You could stop over.
Well, and
But
if you ask me, do I think it's possible? These allegations we've made, right? Past administration. Do I think that that's possible with those allegations could come to fruition tomorrow? I don't. Maybe tomorrow, right? Because the ethics commission hasn't established it. It's still writing bylaws. But once that happens, I don't think that somebody can get away with what we've alleged. Wait,
But that's simply because. But how do we build the structure?
because
And
you'll
that's-
find a loophole in everything. Like people,
Yeah.
if you give them enough time,
Yeah.
and that's
It's not a
that's the
perfect,
biggest.
and it's just, there's just not a.
That's the biggest scare about having the same people, and that's why I said like if you serve 2 terms. I mean, I'm not saying that they have to be 2-year terms. Maybe maybe the general counsel would be more apt to the idea of 4-year terms if they knew you could serve 2 terms and you have to sit out 1 before you can serve.
Yeah.
Or
But I get back, and that's why I get back to. If you're not living here, you have.
Or maybe we have an advisory. Serve us well. Like I've said before, the Upper Sioux are a great tribe, I think, to look at because they're once their leaders are done, whether it's they lose an election or they just run again, they basically go into this like unemployment cycle where they keep half their salary for 6 months. And so for 6 months they continue to get paid. And it allows them to still help out, to still like help guide the community, but also gives them time to where time their life. Like if you left your job tomorrow and you were going to come here and serve, well, that's 6 years away from your
That's,
I couldn't go back.
it'd be very difficult to.
The way with my person.
But, well, you might be able to move back into education, but not so much like that here.
No,
right?
because I'm struck, yeah, because of. You leave a university. That's lineage. Leave, you can't come back.
Yeah.
So there's just, I mean, that's a good example of like, somebody in my position wouldn't have.
Well, I wouldn't say you would never run, but you definitely wouldn't run.
Well,
Yeah, like you.
and I think lots of careers.
For Mans, you could take 6 years off of, from the medical field and then jump right
Technology
back in.
pass you by.
Yeah, they can just, and that's what we're essentially asking.
We could take off 2 years.
I mean, yeah, I couldn't walk back in as being a supervisor anymore. I'd be like, oh, you're starting off.
If you're 16, you take off 2 years.
But, I mean, we're either saying you've got to be retired, or we're saying you have to sacrifice. And that's why, like, there's some people that are uncomfortable with paying DC money.
Or
I
be
feel
local.
comfortable with paying DC money because I know the sacrifice that we're asking them to.
So, but knowing that, would you reconsider your thought on term limits?
I still believe that there should be.
I think this term limits for
The population,
I'm
the
not-
population is already limited for how we're set up.
I'm not against upping our terms. Like, I would much rather have 4-year terms. And you can't continuously serve. And I get what you guys, I get that there's some hesitation because what if we have a really great leader who is doing all the right things, right? I get that. But still, there's that comment that Vinny Davis used to say, about absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. Eventually, people become complacent. I don't think the past leaders, I don't think anybody that we've ever made allegations against came in and said, I'm going to rob these people blind. I don't think that that's ever been like what somebody has considered stepping. But I think over time and being able to get away with things or treat people a certain way, I think that it just happens. And so I think maybe sometimes you need to come back down to earth, like recenter yourself and just.
And how do you do that? So, media relations. All right. You lead for 8 years. Take a 2-year break before you do anything else. What do you do in those 2 years? Start over, pump the bottom of the barrel, for,
I'm not
for
saying that they
employment.
can't. I'm not saying that
and
they
then-
can't be. They can't come back to Quapaw Nation in some way. And honestly, all these elected officials, they haven't made. If they,
But
if they
well,
do
let's
what they-
finish the thought. What do you do?
consultant. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you're an elected official, if you do what you're supposed to do, and I mean, all the connections that you make.
Where do you consult? In the
Everywhere.
field that you
Mhm.
came out of?
Okay, so
or-
we have a non-compete clause.
A non-compete after their.
We have a 2-year. You can't compete with anybody that we've done business with in the past 6 years or could potentially
Or
be
the same market competition.
Mhm.
market competition, still would have a ton. There's 500 tribes there. There's still plenty of people that you might not have interacted with to do business with, but you've interacted with from across the country if you're doing your job, right? If you're going to these events.
that sets up another.
So they have to be a
Moral.
consultant, right? So
They would have
you're
to.
you're creating you're
There.
creating the opportunity. You just created the opportunity to go sideways.
Yeah.
You
So you think-
painted the best opportunity in the world for somebody. All the reason for somebody to go sideways. Because I'm setting myself up whenever I'm done. I've got the next day.
Who isn't? Okay, but who isn't setting them? Like in your career, right?
Well,
What-
I'm
what
using
they're-
I'm abusing the tribe to do it.
But,
right?
okay, but if you're an elected official and you're running for 20 years, are you not setting yourself up? In the end, it is.
Well, there's a difference between requiring it. Suggestion.
No,
you're
I'm not saying
suggesting
they
that-
have to go. Do
No,
consulting.
no,
I'm
no,
saying
not
that's an
consulting.
option.
You're requiring time off.
I don't know. I'm not. Maybe that's not the best system. But I think that, again, there's fallacies. Any way you look, you keep somebody in office for 20 years, you're probably
So
going to end
back,
up with
this
somebody
goes
that's
back to
corrupt.
Derek's point. It's like that we're being really cognizant of not letting something happen again, rather than promoting. You promote a healthy alternative that remains a healthy alternative. Right?
Which
When-
one is
when-
the healthy alternative? Though?
Well, I would,
Well,
what exactly? I would say I don't.
There's a
English historian, because I was going to think what that.
I knew I'd heard
but
something.
still, they don't have absolute power.
But-
Nobody
yeah.
up here has
Yes.
absolute power.
Yeah, and so, and then I don't
But
want
the
somebody.
perception. I mean,
So you're
in the
talking
past-
about somebody being sick.
So we have a more active.
When you pay them or you have them employed by the
or you
tribe,
give them authority to remove, or like
Or you have a more active.
I feel like we're doing things to protect.
I'm sorry. General counsel. We have more active tribal members.
More engaged,
That-
more engaged.
More engaged, yes, more.
That, and
Connected
that right there is the
kids.
key. Keeping this happening, because your general
no, I think-
counsel, the more people that we have involved, the more people we get to help make the decisions and stuff, the more they're overseeing what's happening with VC members, and the less likely you're gonna have somebody that's gonna step up.
How do you know
Going
when they're
back-
stepping up?
Going back to Vance's education. Going back to Vance's idea, it's like if we have more people educated, how to read a financial statement, or open up a document and understand everything that's being presented, and have that ability to look at that a month in advance, not 2 days before general council, then or 2 hours, whenever, you know, yeah, I mean, some people
Yeah.
don't even look at it until it's like, okay, do you accept it? Move to accept.
And then we have other.
Not having actual financial statements that, right?
Well, and then,
It's
and
the
having
audit.
I
a little
agree.
different structure,
Stories,
like the structure you're talking
or,
about.
hey, yeah, we're
So
paying
there's
down our debt.
multiple, that
Show me how
paperwork,
that's
there's multiple, not just
Where
not
was
just
it?
me,
Last year,
legislature or the clan leader.
where's the
It goes
audit,
to that person too,
and
and
where's
she
the
can
audit?
take it to somebody else, so.
And
Yeah, that's why we're
That's
super
what
personal.
you gotta tell them.
That's why,
Almost.
Yeah.
we're every single person here. I think every person in the tribe. If you ask like what the number one thing is, and you gave them 3 options, I think it's accountability. That was an option. What do you have?
Transparency.
But transparency is-
Transparency is
Been
accountability.
used too much.
That's-
Transparency is, I
I'm
mean,
gonna say
Well, that's why we had this
transparency.
discussion,
What's
is
your
like, what does that
definition
mean
of
to?
truth?
Transparency is
It's
an unethical
relative.
word if you don't.
right.
And nobody defines. I want to be transparent.
I told you, my socks were purple.
What do you mean by transparent?
Yeah, like we've heard that so many times, and it's such a dirty word. It's not just Quapaw; it is everywhere. Like in America, you use transparency; it's a dirty word. Politicians,
So our lack of transparency is it isn't a platform, right? It's systemic. We've created.
but even us
Yeah.
saying lack of transparency.
You're not telling me what you want me, you're not, what
But
it's saying is,
what
you're not
does-
telling
what
me
does that
what
mean?
I want.
I mean, it's
Well, they're not.
relative.
We're not giving them opportunity. So this
Right,
bringing it back to structure, right?
right.
We're not giving opportunity for them to be transparent, right? We have a business committee meeting that is not defined on how they're supposed to operate. Right? No definition on how they're supposed to operate. Policies, no bylaws, nothing. All we have is that there will be a meeting conducted the third Saturday of every month. Now, Robert's rules, it's clear in a lot of area that business conducted by a business committee should be done in a business committee meeting, right? But that's not what happens. So again, we've created the system. This is, like I'm saying, this is systemic. We did this. Now we need to undo this. How do we make this transparent. Right? Take away that platform, right? They don't have it's like no, we're giving you this is how you be transparent. We want you to have 3 business committee meetings. This one's going to be closed. This one's going to be whatever. This one's going to be like all extemporaneous stuff. Let's have those meetings. They're recorded. They're out in the open. They're forced to have these conversations.
Let me ask you a question here, because this is one of those things that came up with good intention. I think it was very good intention when this came up. But if you actually look at it, it can be seen as tyrannical, and that is limiting. Right now, you have to. What's your name?
Well, it's outside of Robert's Rules of Order. But they don't. Nobody contests.
You have to put your name on a piece of paper and say what you want to talk about, and turn that in. And again, this is nothing against this committee. I think this committee is doing an amazing job, but you have to hope that whoever's sitting up there is going to do an amazing job and accept that you want to talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Again, who makes the rules? Do they make the rules?
I mean,
General counsel makes the
in that
rules,
regard,
right?
in that, I mean,
So-
that's something general counsel would have to address. But
So we
in
take
this
away that
regard-
platform again, and this is how we institute accountability. This is how we institute transparency. Is they don't make the rules. We write the rules for them, and then they operate
So
within
you
those
have to do a
guidelines.
petition to change it.
No, we're doing a fucking constitution, right? We're writing on it right now. This is the structure. This is how we do it, right? So inside of this, how do we make that? How do we make them transparent? How do we give them opportunity to be transparent? How do we put them on a platform to be transparent to us? We ask for a specific report on a specific date. I don't know.
We got the FOIA, right?
Got the FOIA. We got ethics commission. We got expanded grievance committee authorities. We're doing a lot in demanding this, but now inside of the structure, how do we make it detailed?
Well, and here's another thing, and I'm not. Maybe this is coming up soon. I don't know, but just like the Constitution Committee, we waited 2 years before 2019 when Minnie brought it up. We're now entering year 2 of Terra being passed. With no real direction on Terra. And Terra should be general counsel. Like, we need another session general counsel to talk about Terra, but just for Terra.
So again, this comes
Yes.
back. So under our current system, right? So we're talking about constitution. Okay? We're creating the system. This is carte blanche for us. We do whatever we want here as a people, right? So if we, as the Indian Council, collectively want to make up a new rule, how do we do that, right? This is the system that we're writing, right? So coming back to the structure, what does this look like? How do we set that up, right? Where does that come from? We got policies and procedures, bylaws. Well, currently we know that it's damn near, an act of God to get something like this underway, right?
Yeah.
Petition.
Yeah, you do the petition, and then you're like waiting a year for the vote to come around on it.
No, if you had a petition right now, it has to come in front of the committee, votes against it, it has to go out for a vote within 60 days.
That's going to ballot.
Be on a ballot.
Mhm.
It's still a couple months, but it's still, even to get 100 Quapaws in the room, that's not general
Agreed.
counsel. Like, we've, these open meetings, we've had these open meetings for several months now, and this is like participation right here. We have 4 or 5 people, and Romans pointed out at general counsel, where you have a certain people stand up and said, this is who is making decisions. But how do we increase this participation?
And you know people are gonna be
Handful.
something about, let's be proposed, even though they're not.
They will, right? But we've still got to come to the table
Yeah, no,
with
I know,
something,
I
right?
get it, I get it.
We've
I'm
got to
just
have
saying.
product, and our product
I
right
do
now
not think- yeah.
is we need a form of government. That's what we need right now. We've got a business
So-
committee, we've got an executive branch, we've got
The
what do we say,
judicial,
the
the grievance,
judicial, the
ethics, and
grievance,
courts, and
however
then-
that's going to be painted. And now we need to build that right now. How does that work, right? How do we
need to
how do we promote
define
all these
the-
items?
Define that executive branch. Because we got
Define
the
it.
other- we
Define
already
it.
got the other, right?
What does the executive branch do?
That's Well, the executive branch is
What is the
the
executive branch?
voice of.
The clan leaders.
Right, that's what you, okay, yeah, that's
clan
right,
leaders.
right. So with that, the voice, so we're just talking about it, dignitaries, like the voice.
Right.
Nobody said anything about sitting on, signing off on resolution, right? Now, when we take that into consideration, does it belong on our plate? Does it belong on the tribal leader's plate to be signing off?
I think that if you say whatever it is, tribal leader, executive officer, whatever it is, you say they are the voice of general counsel. Yeah, I think the business committee still writes the law. They are oversight of our business. And the tribal leader, the voice of general counsel, use the voice. It says, yes, this is good for the news works.
Just like the president signing off on a bill. or
President,
that.
just like the governor. I mean, whatever we call it, whatever general counsel wants to call it,
Mhm.
I think that's the path to.
So the picture that we're
sustain
painting,
accountability.
so the picture that we're painting is that the executive office has very little in forming our laws, codes.
They are to review them with the idea, with the idea of what would be good for general counsel. And if general counsel says, hey,
So
you
is
vetoed that law,
But is it one person or is it the
It might be a
clan
couple
leaders? Or is it the group?
I don't think you
Clan?
need to, I don't think it needs to be anything as large as the PC. But I think, yeah, I think maybe you have
Yeah, to your,
two people or three people.
that's an ideal situation to have clan leaders weighing in on this. I think for now, it's important to stick with members that we have and make it work with that and hold in clan leaders.
Leader members being the GC. No, he's talking about the
Business
PC,
committee,
like if you
with
said-
the
if
with
you
the
said
way the business
chairman-
committee is set up right now,
If you said
keeping
the
the same
chairman
seven,
and
making it
secretary
seven.
the
So,
executive officer.
like,
Vice chair.
Chair and vice chair would be the executive.
Yeah, I mean,
Would be
they'd
our-
be president and vice president.
The chair and vice chair is executive, and then all of the rest of them are the legislature.
Or maybe it's the secretary, because we've also talked about splitting the treasurer. I mean, the business committee should have a treasurer, right? Maybe the second person is secretary of interior, or I don't know what you call it, but maybe it's that person, or maybe it is the.
Because in our governing resolution, the secretary is supposed to be the one recording everything, right? And now we have an executive assistant.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, that's what we're talking about. How do we get to sustained accountability? How do we,
Well, we've had this discussion as to, what's that mean?
we've had this discussion as to break that cycle.
Well, no, as to why the judicial systems are our leg of what we're doing, while they may be necessary to interpret, going to be because of how they're appointed, and also because the lack of people. That was, probably one of the
Yeah, we
biggest
don't
things that
have,
talked about
yeah, we're like,
that
how many
lawyers.
Quapaw lawyers do you know?
Mhm.
Like, there's, I'm
Yeah.
two,
I mean, we disbarred one.
yeah, one.
The other one is, we've got a couple more, but slim pickings, right? So, our current judicial system, that's why we got to work with what we got.
The ethics, the grievance.
Ethics, grievance, possibly elder council.
Identify someone that has interest in this field and say, okay, we'll pay for your education, but you're coming back to work with us. Give them 5 years, pay off the education that we pay for them to get that.
Contract.
Right, contracted. I think that's one of the
Downstream does
things
something
that- I mean,
similar.
I know that's out of the scope of what
It's
But you're,
something we've kind of kicked around too, like having a young Quapaws.
There's one established, right? It's just not, I don't think they have a membership yet, but there
The
is
youth
a Quapaw
council.
Nation
okay.
Leadership Council.
Interest serving.
And the whole idea behind it was to prepare them for the PC. They wanted to move into this, will prepare them, help teach them how to work with a body like that. Learn Robert's Rules of Order, like.
What if we just prepared them to be qualified?
Yeah.
Bonuses involved with it, yeah.
with the leadership.
So if we're gonna have your 3-tier, at this point, if we're gonna have an executive branch, and then we've got the legislatures, what did that look like at this point?
Well, maybe that's
Before we have our
what-
clan
like what
leaders,
Roman's saying. Maybe maybe we say, you know what, the chairman.
chairman and vice chair.
Maybe
or-
we say the chairman, the vice chair, and the secretary, or the secretary. No, well, the treasurer on the DC. Let's.
Is
we
it
talked
the
about this,
treasurer's got to make sure that all.
The treasurer
Should be in a different
but This committee needs.
for the purpose of checking.
Well, the
Yeah, check.
business committee needs treasurer for what is there, because they're the ones that are.
Full purse string.
they're not
Another-
they're not doing any budget. They're passing legislation.
So are you changing the BC thing? Because the business committee, like the way I look at it, is. Yeah, but you still have to have somebody that's oversight of.
Spending should be
So the
checked
business-
external.
Okay,
you
so
have
okay, so
directors
treasurer is on the executive. So.
Not, I mean, it doesn't have to be. I'm just saying that there should be that person.
In any case, you
checking that
pull 3
balance
members
should not
from the
be on.
BC.
I think we need to expand the BC anyway.
Yeah. With all of the work that they have to do. Yeah.
Oh, and that's where I think, again, I don't want to see like, this is a member's role, this is a secretary treasurer role. Like, I think you should say, business committee, this is your role. And, executive branch, this is your role. Otherwise, everybody, they should know, which, if you look at the governing resolution, it's basically just given like a short snippet of what's in Robert's Rule of Order. Chairman, you run the meetings. Like, that's what it gives you, except for the secretary treasurer position, which is crazy how much they're like listed out to do. It's insane. But every other position is like, this is what the chairman does. Oh, and if the chairman's not here, the vice chair, you do that role.
So, okay, so if we're expanding the BC, so our executive branch would be the chair, the vice chair, and secretary. Like, no different than having president, vice president, secretary of state.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the treasurer, and then everybody else. So are we adding, if we're splitting, so that gives us an even number. Right now we have, what, 7 members is what we're supposed to have on there. If we are splitting that one, then that gives us 8 members. Do we need 8 members, or do we need to add another member for 9 so that we're odd? We're at odd.
You could still do. You could still do 5 on the committee, 3 on the executive branch. And you do change the name, business committee, right? Legislators, your lawmakers.
I think one of the members should be secretary, treasurer, executive.
Well, they could, and you don't even have to. We don't
Well,
elect for that. That's what within that body. It's the same with
The treasurer would take the financials and everything, put them together and do, basically do the financial reports and everything, and report that, collecting that with the business committee, and then that person reports all of that to the executive.
What I'm saying
Really
is
don't
like,
have,
we could just say you're legislators and you come up with your own treasurer, or you come up with your own secretary within your body. kind of like how we formed, right? We chose
Every
a
other
chairman.
subcommittee's got to do it.
We chose a chairman. We chose secretary. Well, I was kind of like third in line. But you know what I mean? Like that's how we could do it. We could just say, all right, you guys you're not the business committee anymore. You're legislators. You're lawmakers.
So we're looking
And
at
now here's our
looking
chairman,
at a three-person executive
5-person
office.
Three-person, second, 5-person.
legislator.
So adding one business. All right.
See, Mark.
All right. We're over. But now that we've got traction, you want to leave. No. All right.
Well, I think that this was good. I think all.
No,
of
let's
us-
keep pouring it out though, because we're this is getting the detail that we're looking for.
I actually like that idea. And then the grievance, ethics, and courts is our judicial.
Yeah, and they keep
So-
everybody in line. They're
Right.
Like, oh, like the ethics committee would still be over.
Well, they would
I
be
think
over
they-
for all of it. Well,
The grievance committee, the grievance committee would handle the executives, and everything else would be under the ethics. I mean, the
everybody needs to be under
The,
ethics.
well, the executive branch would be under ethics, but the grievance committee would be who investigates, and if they find something unethical, the ethics commission.
But if it's illegal and it's against our laws,
Then
then
it
it
needs
needs
to
to
go
go
to
into.
courts. There's a way we can figure all this out, but I think all of us. This is probably the route, right? This is an option we should give.
I think it's a viable option.
When we did the we didn't have grievance.
That's so okay. That's one thing I was thinking too. Who appoints that part of the judicial? Because I mean, right now, like,
We have to hire people.
well,
Outside
you
of-
got to do. They're all on contract, but like right now, the business committee hires and decides to get rid of contracts for judges and lawyers. Those are the individuals that would prosecute the business committee.
So
which is a
there's-
problem.
There's a conflict of interest there because they have their jobs are based on what these decision makers do. And if they're having to investigate or charge one of these guys, then they're stepping on toes and they're afraid that
You're gonna lose your
there's
job.
Why
that-
don't
yeah.
why don't we have an election for our judges? The
The general
executive
counsel would-
office,
general counsel
or
would-
actually the entire business committee, and decide who candidates are, and the entire general council places that vote, right?
Kinda like the
Because
Supreme
then
Court.
because
Kinda
then
like
they're well, Supreme Court's for life. For us, it would be it
Well,
would be,
well, the
we could
Supreme
say
Court.
we
Yeah,
could say like a 6 or 8 year cycle for each, or six feels safe, but as far as an 8 year cycle for security, it invites good judges to put their name in, to be a part of, but it puts them also at the helm of the council and not.
Should general counsel also vote in their special prosecutor? Their- Well, defense. Their special prosecutor. Other prosecutor.
like an attorney general.
DA.
Attorney general, there you go. Or district attorney.
I mean, attorney general in a lot of societies is voted on by the people.
So
But
that's what we should-
but we're also stretched to even have an attorney general that's not a part of the business committee, right? Like if we're gonna do something like that, a sergeant at arms is, technically the rule
I'm
enforcer.
specifically talking about the prosecutorial duties, right? Like, if somebody on the BC is acting on the executive branch for doing really bad things, right now,
And the grievance
they can
committee,
fire.
grievance committee investigates it.
They can fire
entire
anybody.
the entire business committee.
But they can fire anybody that. And we've seen entire BC. We think we've seen entire BC that have went along stuff that it wasn't above board.
Hmm.
So general council needs. If we're going to talk about they should elect judges. They should elect them, yeah, or just return. I mean, Ottawa
So
County.
so who's in charge of that? Who's in charge of finding those candidates?
I think that would be the.
I think the BC still needs to find a candidate.
DC finds candidates, but they bring in people.
Hey, if you
They're gonna find
Who-
some
who
terrible
finds the
candidates to
candidates?
put in front of you if that's the.
Who finds the candidates for
I mean, when
a
they-
locality?
Or those individuals just put in for it.
Yeah, I mean, we could also give the chief judge the authority to pick that person themselves, right? Like they're, like they've got access to the pool of people. Going back to appointing people, I think it's important for
Like they would
for an
appoint.
executive office, if they're leading this nation, they should be able to have the people in certain positions that are going to help enhance their leadership, right? Like they know how to work with each other, and they have similar views on how to do things. That's great leadership, but that power does need to be checked, right? Like it should rest on me. I should be able to pick them. They need to be confirmed, similar to cabinet member today. They've got to be confirmed by. Mm-hmm.
So, for example, we could still have BC in charge. But they may not have the ability to really make, like, for example, cabinet BC appoint them. And then they get elected. Maybe one of the other and then that can be possible.
Yeah, I think that. Well, I think maybe the ethics. They would have to do something unethical.
That would get rid of the concerns of BC.
Yeah, that's one of the things.
They
We
can
gotta
appoint
make
them,
sure
but they
that
can't
we,
But still, there's still the concern of the buddy system. If the business committee is tasked with appointing.
But that's a recommendation.
I mean, but I guess in the same respect, the ethics commission, if that buddy system is there, will be charged with making sure that's not happening, right? So yeah, okay, maybe the BC is who appoints the ethics commission. Yeah.
Yep. And not that, but the VC, we may have a leadership who's there for 20+ years, but
Isn't that awesome?
they may be there for 2 years and their appointments are still there after they leave.
I think we've got some good stuff going.
Yeah. We just start putting it into action. Did that work?
You got it right. ash and everything else.
Mess around with it. Take it to your home. All right. 4-person executive or 4-person legislative is what I've got here.
I think we need 5. Yeah.
But yeah.
So
What? 5 person, we get one odd number.
period. So keeping the executive office involved in policy. That one person would be a don't necessarily add it to the person. You just give additional duties in the executive office.
But
For now, I mean, so this is
because we're also
It could be
we're also
presented.
circling the needing correct?
oh, we're gonna need Department of Interior. Well, no, not like this to add. So
Yeah, it would
To
be
completely
yeah,
restructure.
This would be restructured.
well, we're not reorganizing, restructuring. We'll have to look at that. I'll have to look at that.
Yeah, I think
I don't
that's
think
the
that this
close one right
qualifies
here,
as
because we
reorganizing.
literally pulling 3 people off and saying you now have to it's 4 or 5.
Mhm.
I think that's we gotta definitely ask. We might have to reach out. Hey, let's check it in. Break that barrier. Or...
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be a clear definition. All right. Go ahead. Thanks everybody for joining.
It's all right. We got to record it. There's a lot of good discussion here.
It's about opportunity. Opportunity to join. So
And
this
that's all
is
you can
this
do.
is the systemic transparency, right? Even though nobody takes you up on it.